What's up everybody, D-Man back. Welcome to a brand new video, and today we're going to be doing something a little different. Last year, I was contacted by a man named King Gilmore around this time who asked me if I was interested in reviewing a brand new kaiju thriller book written by Jeremy Robinson called Tether. As someone who wants to be a kaiju author myself someday, of course I said yes. And so here we are, a long time later, and I'm finally fulfilling my promise to review this book. So here we go. In September of 2019, Jeremy Robinson released his new book, Tether. I wanted to get a couple reads of this under my belt before I reviewed it because books are hard, you know? It's not like a movie. You can't just pop it on and absorb it all at once. At least for me anyways. It takes me a lot longer to digest a book. So now with 2 reads of this under my belt, I'm ready to review it. Tether is a 2019 cosmic horror mystery meets kaiju novel written by Jeremy Robinson, the author of indie cult kaiju favorite Project Nemesis. I've never read any of his other works. I've heard a lot about them. I think I own Project Nemesis, the audiobook. I'm very excited to check it out following Tether, but I've never read any of his other works, so this was a brand new experience for me. This review will be spoiler free because Tether is a book with many twists and turns that we will sort of discuss in a non-spoiler way in a little bit. So I just want to give you all warning that this is a spoiler-free review. I, in fact, recommend you just go into the book fresh. Don't have any information. This is going to be a spoiler-free review, but it's still going to give you a bit of an idea of where you're going in the story. I'd say just go in fresh. The only thing I knew about it was that it was supposed to be a kaiju story, and I knew that it had to somehow relate to me if they sought me out to review it. And by that I mean it had to have some sort of relation to Godzilla or kaiju or that kind of genre, and it does, but I don't want to say anything about it because it doesn't do it in the traditional sense. So you just gotta go in fresh. Also, no, that doesn't mean that Godzilla's in the story, so don't think he is. It's not a Godzilla story. Here is the spoiler-free plot of Tether. Tether is the story of Saul Signalman trying to discover what happened to his wife Morgan after the scientific lab she works in exploded into a beam of blue energy. The story unfolds in first person as we explore the winding roads ahead along with Saul, who's a broken man trying to find his strength in a world without his beacon of hope. Saul and the squad who assemble around him as the story goes on travel across the eastern United States as they get wrapped up in a conspiracy with interdimensional implications. Side note, it's fun to visit Boston. You do visit Boston in this story for the second time in 2019 and have it get destroyed by kaiju. That's always good. We just had that in Godzilla King of the Monsters, and so this is like a nice little companion piece to that. It's a totally different type of destruction though. Also, this is the first book I've read that wasn't a children's book that's told in first person, so that was a massive shocker to me. I don't know, it took me a little while to get used to it, but once I got used to it, it was like, all right, let's go. Yeah, I'm totally down for it. It really threw me off at first. I was like, whoa, I have never read a book in first person that is this serious. The only other first person books I can think of I read back in like middle school or before that, so it's kind of a nice change of pace. It's a little refreshing to be able to get inside the mind of your character. Let's talk about the characters. Starting out with Saul, who's a down-to-earth everyman. He's flawed, and at times he can be pretty weak. That's a good thing, though. He comes equipped with pop culture references and witty observations. Saul is our POV character in multiple senses of the term. Not only is he the character whose head we're inside of, but he's also an outsider in his own story. Saul is the character who knows the least about what's going on, and so we learn with him. Next, we have Reggie. She's an eccentric scientist. She's quirky and witty, as most of the characters in this book are. She serves as our primary source of exposition, as she is the one who knows the most about what's happening. I don't have too much to say about her. Bjorn, who thank God I listened to the audiobook, otherwise I would have never known how to pronounce his name, is a strangely down-to-earth man of magic. I don't want to give anything away, but magic. Right? Bjorn is a bit of a comic relief character who most of the time we're laughing at rather than with, but he also has moments where he shines on his own. Then we have Garcia, who again is a witty FBI agent who throws down and is a major standout despite not having a terrible amount to do. And then we come to my personal favorite, Rain. I love Rain. She's a troubled girl who has no memory but has killer instincts. Although she's a badass, she's a broken hero who has some awesome supernatural abilities that develop as the story goes on. on. Oh, she's great. I just have some general talking points. Tether is a good-humored book. It takes itself seriously, but is also aware of its absurd premise. There are a number of truly funny moments throughout the book, including one line which I personally love. I don't know the exact line off the top of my head, but basically, to paraphrase, it's kind of like the characters are put in a situation where they go, we might die. And one of the characters is like, well, if we do, it's the fastest way to find out if ghosts exist, so there's a bonus. I don't know. It comes at a really great time in the story. I did a total disservice by trying to reference it right there, but it killed me both times I read the book. Although I will say not all of the humor lands, most of it does, so that's good. As for the twists in Tether, I mentioned at the start that there are many twists throughout this story, and there are. At times though, I think Tether thinks it's sneakier than it is. There are a number of major twists this book takes, and at times some of them are genuinely surprising, but there are also many times where the twists are fairly obvious and you can see them coming many chapters before they're revealed. At least that's how I was. A lot of my predictions of, that's gonna be what happens, are revealed in big plot twist moments, and it's like, I already predicted that. But again, there are a few moments where it's genuinely shocking. You go, I had no idea. I did not see that one coming. There are a few strange moments in here that have stood out to me both times I've read the book that I wasn't a particularly big fan of. There's one super out of touch character who luckily is only there for like 2 pages. And even our main character is aware of how out of touch this guy is. It's just a kid who he stumbles across at the very beginning of his adventure, but the kid is so out of touch that it's super unrealistic. Like, no one would ever talk like that. But it's okay, because again, that character is not one of our main characters. He is someone we bump into, and then we immediately leave him. And then there's also a really weird but fairly important plot point surrounding the game Asteroids. It doesn't really work for me. That's just me personally. I don't really buy it. I think there are a lot of strange things with that specific plot point that make me go, But outside of that, it's all fine. As I said at the start, this is an amazing cosmic horror story. Although I'm not entirely sure that's what Jeremy Robinson had in mind. I don't know if that's exactly what he was aiming for, but it lands perfectly if it was. Tether is the best cosmic horror story I've ever read, and I know I haven't read a ton of that genre, but in terms of what I have exposure to, this is by far my favorite. Robinson does a fantastic job painting truly disturbing and unfathomable images without the use of visuals. I love it. The whole time in my head, I was picturing this as a movie, and I was picturing it very vividly. And so when you do have those cosmic horror moments, I can picture those very vividly as well, which is great. The cosmic horror elements also serve as an awesome kaiju story that lends a lot of weight and gravity to the monsters at hand. I cannot talk a lot about that without giving away spoilers, so all you have to know is that there's a great kaiju story in here. I just can't say anything about it without giving away spoilers. Now, there's the villain. I can't say much about him either. I don't even want to say his name because I don't want to give any spoilers about him away. But there's a villain who's introduced towards the end of the book that never really has a lot of page time and isn't very well developed. He would have been so much better and way more intimidating had he done anything more than he actually does. Robinson could have added many more levels to the book and introduced us to a whole new type of threat, but he was never given the time to shine, and so none of that ever comes to pass. As it stands, he's more of an obstacle than a villain, and I think that it could have been a little scarier had he been a villain in and of himself. That being said, the payoff with that villain is awesome. It's one of my favorite parts of the book, and I absolutely love it. I also thought they totally forgot to have any sort of resolution with this. I was like, that's the resolution? It's basically like, we can wipe our hands clean of that situation. But oh no. When things finally do wrap up, they wrap up really well. It's fantastic. Here are a few extra notes. The title reveal comes in chapter 24 and is developed from there on. It's really awesome. Not only is it a super interesting concept, but as you learn what the tether is, you get really excited to see what can be done with it. Godzilla, our favorite boy, gets a shout out in chapter 21, so there's something fun for you. I think it's chapter 21 anyways. I might be one chapter off with the numbers, but I don't think I am. Maybe I am, I don't know. Project Nemesis gets multiple shout outs throughout the book. At first, I didn't realize this was written by the same author, so I was like, that's really awesome. This guy's paying tribute to what must be one of his favorite kaiju books. And then I realized it was the same author, and I was like, you cheeky pig. That brings us to the audiobook. I gotta give this a shout out as well. They tried to give me a free audiobook when I was getting ready to review this. I just kind of biffed it. I bought it. It's okay. I don't mind buying it. I bought it, both the hard copy and the audiobook. I don't regret either purchase. It was money well spent. spent. It should give you a bit of an indication as to how I feel about the book. So thank you for the attempt. I messed it up though. The audiobook, narrated by Jeffrey Kafer, runs for 8 hours and 15 minutes. It's a very solid production. The narration is really well done. Each character has their own distinct voice, although all voices are done by Kafer, so don't think that there's just like new voice actors, and the emotion is felt throughout. I highly recommend the audiobook for Tether. If you're someone like me who loves to consume books but does not have the time to read books, I highly recommend it. I think you, most of the viewers, would enjoy it. Now we have my final thoughts. Tether is part Lovecraft, part mystery, part horror in the vein of Poltergeist, part Godzilla, and part the end of Evangelion. And I'm very specific about the end of Evangelion. And if you read the book, specifically the ending of the book, you'll know why. There's one image in particular that sticks with me as being especially the end of Evangelion. And there's also one moment that I feel, I don't know if it was intentional, but I feel calls back to one of the final episodes of Evangelion. The cosmic horror is slightly reminiscent of Ghidorah's handling in Godzilla the Planet Eater. That's by far the best aspect of Godzilla the Planet Eater, and it's one of the best aspects, if not the best aspect of this book as well. There's also a super Planet Eater moment where I don't know if it was intentional, but it could be. Things happen very similar to something that happens in Godzilla the Planet Eater, and it's so awesome in both of these things. It was awesome in the Planet Eater, and it's awesome in Tether. The human story is fun and interesting, the supernatural story is great, and the book is really well written and engaging. Tether is a solid 8 out of 10 for me. It's the best non-King book, both Stephen and Godzilla, that I've ever read. Go check it out. Also, I recommended this book to director Michael Dougherty, and he said he'd check it out too, so you're gonna be reading the same book that maybe he read if he followed through with that. So that's kind of cool to think about. Thank you all for watching. Thank you for sending Tether. If you've read the book, let me know what you think about it down below. If you've read any other of Robinson's books, tell me what you think of those down below. I will see you guys next time for the next one. D-Man out.